Donald Trump nasceu em berço de ouro. O pai dele ficou multimilionário construindo habitações populares aqui no bairro do Queens, em Nova York. A família morava nesta mansão, uma das maiores do bairro, com 23 aposentos. Mas para Donald era pouco. Daqui ele saiu para conquistar Manhattan, construiu um império de hotéis e cassinos, faliu e deu a volta por cima e usou sua fama para tomar de assalto o Partido Republicano.
I'm asking you to dream big, to push for bold change.
O Sem Fronteiras conta a história do bilionário que surpreendeu o mundo ao conquistar o posto mais cobiçado do planeta, o de presidente dos Estados Unidos. Para conhecer as raízes de Donald Trump, nós pegamos a estrada. O destino, East Haven, uma aldeia em Vermont, nordeste dos Estados Unidos. Quem nos recebe é Gwenda Blair. Gwenda passou mais de 10 anos pesquisando para escrever um livro sobre a história da família Trump.
When I began to research and look into his background, I realized that there was a kind of a three-generational saga here of him, his father, and his grandfather. And there was a whole kind of story of America that was really sort of embodied in this one family of entrepreneurs who went from the gold rush in the turn of the 20th century in Seattle and in Yukon to Manhattan. His grandfather came to the U.S. in 1885 from Germany, got here when he was 16, came by himself. He had two older sisters who had preceded him to New York, so he stayed with them, it seems like just about long enough to learn English, and then went out to the Northwest, which was the last of the American physical frontier, opened some restaurants, first in Seattle, then in the Yukon during the gold rush era. Very shrewd about what to do, how to make his mark. He didn't go out and mine for gold himself. Instead, he, what we say is, mined the miners. He opened restaurants where he gave his customers who were mostly single young men, what they were looking for, which was food and alcohol and female companionship.
And the father, Fred Trump.
Fred Trump, in a way, you could say, embarked on the next frontier, which was the New Deal under Franklin Roosevelt, when the federal government became a major player in the economy. And during the Depression and after the Depression, got very involved in tax abatements and various sorts of subsidies for middle-income housing. And Fred Trump, Donald's father, was very successful in those programs, extremely successful. Every loophole there was, he marched through it and did very well.
Michael D'Antônio, autor de uma biografia de Donald Trump, também passou anos tentando entender esta figura, que para ele continua enigmática.
Donald was raised with enormous wealth. He had servants in the home. Yeah. He delivered newspapers as a boy, and when it rained, the chauffeur took him around to deliver his newspapers. So he had everything that money could buy. But his father was absent most of the time. He was a man who got up before the children, and his wife arose in the morning and came home just for dinner, and then would retire to a study to work at home. And he worked Saturdays and Sundays, and he told his children, if you want to know me, come to work with me. Then he grew into a very bratty, difficult boy. And
was he a bully at school?
He was a terrible bully. And he not only bullied the other children, he tried to bully the teachers as well. So they would always be on the telephone calling Mr. Trump. Now, Mr. Trump was a trustee and a donor to this private school, and it was quite embarrassing for him to always be hearing from the teacher and the principal of the school that Donald was making trouble.
So he was shipped to a military school?
He went off to this academy, and as a child, he was 13 years old, was given a uniform and sent to a tiny room and said, this is where you'll live until you're 18 years old.
A lot of kids would be homesick, not him. He loved it. He loved that it was, there were so many ways to compete. There were so many different things he could do. The cleanest room, the cleanest uniform, best at drilling, best at marching around the football field. Lots of athletic endeavors, and he was quite athletic. His coach told me that he was possibly the most coachable kid he ever had. And what he meant was, most kids, if you tell them what to do, maybe they listen, maybe they don't, maybe they pay attention, maybe they follow. He always listened and always did it because he wanted to win. And he did.
Depois de sair da escola militar, em 1964, Trump se matricula na Fordham University, no Bronx, aqui em Nova York. Passados 2 anos, ele pede transferência para uma das mais renomadas escolas de negócios do país, a Wharton School of Business, na Universidade da Pensilvânia.
He was not a distinguished student. I mean, he got through. He did like studying real estate. That was something that was useful. He's all about work. He's not about small talk. He's not about anything like that. He's only about making money and working. And so studying real estate, that made sense. Studying history, forget it. The other students in classes with him told me that it was like he would be up in front talking to the professor about doing deals, and they would just be sitting there.
No final dos anos 60, antes mesmo de se formar, Trump já tinha começado a trabalhar nos negócios da família. Observava atento a forma como o pai negociava, ouvia conselhos. Ao perceber que os subsídios do governo tinham minguado para quem, como o pai dele tinha feito antes, investisse na construção de moradias populares, Trump resolveu investir em outro nicho, o luxo.
When Donald came into Manhattan and did his first deal, it was to refurbish an old hotel, the Commodore Hotel, which was right next to Grand Central Station, which was basically the gateway to New York for train travelers. And the hotel had fallen on hard times. And it was part of the old style of wealthy New York on the east side, limestone, buildings with limestone facades, very simple, unadorned, genteel, not boasting about being wealthy. That was sort of looked down on as being very crass and vulgar. Donald wanted none of that. Instead, he put a shiny glass facade on the outside of this old building, made it absolutely stand out from everything else. It was kind of shocking, actually. And he did the same thing with his subsequent projects in New York. They didn't look anything like old-style, wealthy New York. They were new, they were shiny, they had lots of glass, lots of crystal chandeliers, lots of brass, lots of mirrors. And he was exactly right that there were enough people who were interested in that kind of housing, and he provided it.
E assim, Trump foi pintando de dourado a Manhattan dos anos 80. O sobrenome Trump vira marca de sucesso, estampado na fachada de prédios, iates, aviões, e vira até um jogo de tabuleiro.
Play Trump, that game from Milton Bradley.
I think you'll like it. I've had 2.7, I've had much less, I've had much more. They're all over and the truth is, nobody knows but me and my accountant, because I'm a private company. But I think people will be very, very impressed when they find out the net worth.
We don't know at all how rich Donald Trump is. And this has been a controversy throughout his life. He has long claimed to be worth an excessive amount. In the 80s, it was $1 billion. And then by the year 2000, it may have been 4 or 5. And today he says he's worth 10 to 12 billion. Now, there have been investigations of his wealth. And these are very difficult to sustain, because none of his businesses are publicly traded. He doesn't have to report to any authority the real facts of his business life. And I actually think this is why he doesn't want to release his tax returns. He's concerned that the public may find out that he's not as rich as he claims, or may find out that he's not charitable in the way that he says, or that he pays very little or maybe no income tax at all.
Junto com o patrimônio, Trump também faria crescer a família. Da união com a ex-modelo tcheca Ivana Zelníková, nasceram Donald Trump Jr., Ivanka e Eric. No começo da década de 90, Trump faz uma jogada que lhe custaria caro. Inaugura o Taj Mahal, seu terceiro cassino em Atlantic City, Nova Jersey. Com 11 mil metros quadrados, o grandioso cassino era chamado por ele de oitava maravilha do mundo.
The interesting thing there is that he wound up competing with himself. There was already a Trump casino in Atlantic City. It didn't require another one. And as a result, the flash of success was then followed by bankruptcy.
There's this side of him, like the successful businessman, which is actually not true, right? He's not that...
Well, his success is balanced by a great many failures.
Yeah.
So he's someone who's gone through billions of dollars worth of bankruptcies. 4 times he's had major companies walk away from their debt. Now, if you're a person in America who owns a home and you don't pay your bills, the bank can come and take your home and you're ruined. But if you're a business person and your corporation decides that it won't pay its bills, you may walk away unaffected by it. You'll be every bit as rich as you were when you started your company.
But your investors...
But your investors lose everything. In Donald's case, people who supplied his casinos with furniture and carpeting and painting services and food and other things lost money because he walked away from what he owed them. But Donald was fine. And what's ironic about this is that he suggests that this is a sign of his acumen, that he's a good businessman because he did this, that he cheated these people, but he walked away whole.
No mesmo ano em que o Taj Mahal faliu, 1992, Trump se divorciou da primeira mulher, Ivana. Um ano mais tarde, se casou com outra loura, a atriz Marla Maples, mãe da quarta filha dele, Tiffany.
Marla, right here.
What about the women in his life, like his first wife? So she was as competitive as he was, right? So,
Indeed, she was Ivana, who was Czechoslovakian and a model and statuesque. Having a 6-foot-tall blonde next to him, well, that helps. So she certainly could fulfill that part of her, job description. But it turned out that she was just as competitive as he was and thought that she was going to be in business too and that she was going to do really well. And he had just no interest in that. And in a way, it was like he married the wrong parent. He married the competitive person like his dad and not the kind of helpmate like his mother. So that eventually hit the wall, and he ended up with his second wife, very gorgeous, who was not competitive at all.
E foi no glamouroso mundo das modelos que ele encontrou outra forma de investir, a organização de concursos de beleza. Mas ele estava longe de parar por aí. Esta é a sede do império de Donald Trump em Nova York, a Trump Tower, onde ele mora numa cobertura triplex de 53 aposentos, segundo ele, a residência mais luxuosa da cidade. Depois de dominar as manchetes aqui durante 3 décadas, Trump se projetou como celebridade nos Estados Unidos e no mundo através de uma série de TV, um reality show, gravado todo aqui no prédio dele. Foi o salto de Donald Trump de figurinha carimbada de Nova York para marca registrada de alcance global.
And I have to say, you're fired.
A vida amorosa do bilionário segue ritmo de reality show. Sai Marla Maples, entra Melania Knauss. Em 2005, Trump se casa com a ex-modelo eslovena, 24 anos mais nova. Barron, o caçula do clã, nasce no ano seguinte.
Now he's on his third wife, yet another model, also not competing with him for the spotlight, gorgeous, arm candy, standing next to him, contributes to the picture of him as the alpha male, the guy who's got everything, including this gorgeous babe wife, who's very good looking, wears very tiny clothes that show herself off to the best advantage, and is always either next to him or behind him, but never in front of him.
Donald Trump is
No mesmo ano do casamento, ele inaugura a Trump University, uma escola para ensinar negócios imobiliários. Pouco tempo depois, a universidade fecharia em meio a acusações de que, apesar do nome, a escola nunca havia sido homologada como instituição de ensino superior.
Trump University.
He's a bad student.
Às vésperas da campanha de reeleição de Barack Obama, Trump inicia outra polêmica. Passa a questionar a nacionalidade do presidente.
He could have been born in Kenya, could have been born, some people think, Indonesia. Why doesn't he show the birth certificate?
Obama não perdeu a chance de fazer piada.
But no one is happier, no one is prouder to put this birth certificate matter to rest than the Donald. And that's because he can finally get back to focusing on the issues that matter. Like, did we fake the moon landing?
Trump, que cogitava concorrer à presidência naquele ano, desiste, mas não por muito tempo.
I am officially running for President of the United States, and we are going to make our country great again.
Donald Trump não bebe, não fuma e não joga, mas a vida dele é uma série de jogadas de alto risco. Em algumas se deu bem, em outras quebrou a cara, mas sempre achou um jeito de sair ganhando. A maior de todas as jogadas foi se candidatar a presidente. What is your personal impression of the man?
Well, you know, my impression was different than the impression that he gives off. You know, he gives off a very pugnacious, angry, even hostile appearance and presentation. And I found him kind of like a pussycat, a man very eager to be liked, very works hard at being charming. Really wants you to like him, and I actually did like him.
Yeah. So the angry Trump is an act?
I think the angry Trump is an act. I think it's I think there's the public man is a man who understands what the media wants at any given point in time. After spending time with Trump, I don't think he's interested in politics. I don't think he's interested in policy. I don't think he's certainly not interested in Washington. What he's interested in is being on television, being being at the center of attention, being a man who works the media.
I love the media. They're so honest. They're such honorable people.
In what ways he became the people's billionaire? So somebody who is like a regular guy who has a lot of money.
He doesn't seem like he belongs to fancy clubs and is on a museum board and has some sort of fabulous art collection. He comes across as a regular guy, and indeed, he really would rather be eating hamburgers and milkshakes and a big piece of chocolate cake. That is who he is. He does eat fast food. That's the guy he is. And he's been able to present himself as, indeed, the sort of the people's billionaire, not a Rockefeller, not a snob, somebody who's just like you if you just happen to get a bunch of money.
There is in American politics a long history of anti-intellectualism, and so he's comfortable with this, and it actually is why he's comfortable saying things that seem racist, that seem misogynistic. He understands that there are Americans who are angry at equal rights for all people, especially white men who are less educated. That's his base of support. And these are the guys who don't like it that an African American became president. They don't like it that women are competing for jobs in their professions. They wish that things were back the way they were in the 1960s when they had every advantage. And so Donald understands this and he plays to it. And that's how he became the nominee. He understood how to exploit those feelings.
These are people who work hard but no longer have a voice. I am your voice.
Na corrida pela nomeação como candidato republicano à presidência, Donald Trump precisou derrotar 16 concorrentes. E mesmo assim, está longe de ser unanimidade dentro do partido. Do final da década de 80 para cá, Trump mudou 5 vezes de partido. Inscreveu-se no Partido Republicano em 87. Virou independente em 99, democrata em 2001. Voltou a ser republicano em 2009. Saiu do partido em 2011, para depois virar republicano de novo. O jornalista Bret Stephens é editorialista do Wall Street Journal, uma das publicações mais conservadoras dos Estados Unidos. Ele fez campanha contra Donald Trump. As a conservative, how do you see Donald Trump?
As a non-conservative. I think Donald Trump engineered a takeover of the Republican Party for a variety of reasons. He was successful in this, in part because he was conspicuously really the major non-politician in the race. I guess there was Ben Carson, but Trump had more traction. Trump in being protectionist, Trump in being anti-immigrant, Trump in having a business record that raises some eyebrows. I'm being very diplomatic in saying this. Trump in not seeming to understand what the conservative movement is fundamentally about in his sort of mercantilist approach to business issues. All of these are the antithesis of what I understand conservatism to be.
But then why did the Republican electorate pick him?
I think there are a variety of reasons. He was clearly the contrasting, the candidate with some color, some colorfulness in a field of sort of similar looking politicians, tame politicians. The second thing is, I think that the conservative movement has been driven a little crazy by the Obama presidency. 7 years of a president that conservatives have just detested. And so in a way, Trump was an expression of anger. I think the third thing, and this is very important, is that the United States never fully recovered from our recession. Usually after America's had recessions, we get growth of between 3 and 4%. Since the last recession, we've had growth that really is no more than 2%. Those differences may sound small in one year, but over the aggregate, they become quite large. A lot of people just gave up looking for jobs. They retired early, or they're in the jobs they never wanted to have. And that is going to create a tremendous amount of anxiety and a tremendous amount of anger. And I think Trump is a funnel for that anxiety and anger, that sense that the American dream that functioned for so long, for so well, stopped functioning for this group of people. And those anxieties are profound, and I think they're sincere, and I think they need to be addressed.
Na reta final da eleição, Trump disputou ponto a ponto com a concorrente, Hillary Clinton. Passou por maus bocados quando vazou um áudio em que ele fazia comentários machistas. Foi acusado de assédio sexual por várias mulheres, entre elas uma ex-concorrente do reality show comandado por ele. Mesmo assim, conseguiu ganhar a eleição. Agora o mundo vai ter que se acostumar com a ideia de que o que parecia improvável se tornou realidade. Trump é o novo presidente americano. Resta, por hora, tentar imaginar como será a presidência dele. Uma coisa é certa, a audiência não vai faltar.